7 of the fantasy football season. And here's a few tight ends I looked at on the wire this week. The first guy, Mike Casicki of the Miami Dolphins. I know Casicki, he don't play a lot of snaps. I know he don't do much for fantasy, but he's a guy you got to highlight this week. 6 catches, 69 yards, and 2 touchdowns on 7 targets. That's something I'm not going to shy away from or not talk up to it. Viglia, he should be back in Week 7 versus Pittsburgh on Sunday Night Football. And right now, Casicki, he's made some plays this season. I know Week 2 was his last big game, but to come off a big game like this and be a big red zone target, I know after Teddy Bridgewater was quarterbacking in this game, after Thompson went down. But anyway, Mike Casicki, if you want a tight end, if you want to take a chance with him, he's out there, like I said, in tons of fantasy leagues. This week, if you need a tight end, another weak position, just like quarterback this season. Next guy's Robert Tonyan of the Green Bay Packers. So he's been on this list a decent amount of times this season here, is Robert Tonyan. But he's still undervalued and underappreciated for fantasy. Available in 58% of fantasy leagues. And he's coming off a big ball game, Week 6 versus the Jets. 10 catches, 90 yards on 12 targets. And right here, Week 7, another pretty decent matchup at the Washington Commanders here that give up a lot of yards in the air. Even though that Thursday Night Football game was one of the worst games you'll ever see. The last 2 weeks have just been pretty horrible for Thursday Night Football. But anyway, Tonyan coming off a big game. Aaron Rodgers, he don't really trust a lot of his younger receivers, obviously, here. And Tonyan only in his 3rd or 4th season with Green Bay, getting 12 targets and 10 catches. And that's another guy you definitely got to go out there on the wire and get this week here. Coming off a big target share and a good ball game like that. The next guy's Hunter Henry of the New England Patriots. So Hunter Henry, first 4 weeks of the season, didn't do anything, but the last 2 weeks on the fantasy radar now. The last 2 weeks, here's Henry. Week 5 versus Detroit, 4 catches, 54 yards. And then Week 6 at Cleveland, 4 catches, 61 yards, and a touchdown. So yeah, this offense has looked better under Bailey Zappi at quarterback the last 2 weeks here. Week 5, 29 points versus the Lions. And then Week 6 at Cleveland, 38 points for this Patriot offense. So right here, they got a good matchup, Week 7 versus the Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football. I don't know if it's going to be Zappi or Mac Jones, but either way, I think Hunter Henry's a serviceable guy right now to get in fantasy at tight end. And especially, like I said, weak position. You need guys that are going to make plays and catches. And he's available in 64% of fantasy leagues. The next guy's Daniel Bellinger of the New York Giants. Each week here, it seems like Bellinger's getting better. And the guy to pick up on the wire, available in 98% of fantasy leagues. So the last 2 weeks here, he's cracked double-digit fantasy points. Week 5 versus Green Bay in London, 2 catches, 22 yards, and 2-yard rushing touchdown. And Week 6 at Baltimore, 5 catches, 38 yards, and a touchdown. So he's a guy Daniel Jones has trusted the last few weeks in the red zone here and a big target. And like I said, this Giant team is lacking receivers, they're lacking red zone targets, but Bellinger at tight end has been a serviceable guy over the last few weeks, and him and Daniel Jones are building a good rapport. So Week 7, a pretty good matchup at the Jacksonville Jaguars. And if you're in a pinch at tight end and need one, he's available in 98% of fantasy leagues. And the 5th and final tight end I look to get on the wire this week's Noah Fant of the Seattle Seahawks. So a lot of people thought it was going to be Will Disley, but now Noah Fant, him and Geno are getting comfortable over there for the Seattle team. And the last couple weeks, his numbers have gone up. Each week is Noah Fant. Week 4 at Detroit, a catch, 2 yards, a touchdown. Week 5 at New Orleans, 3 catches, 49 yards. And then Week 6 versus Arizona, the best game yet for him this season as a Seahawk. 6 catches, 45 yards on 7 targets. And next week, another pretty decent matchup at the Charger defense that really hasn't stopped anyone over the last few weeks here. Font available in 89% of fantasy leagues. Tight end is a weak position, like I mentioned. And he's a guy we're giving add to on the wire this week. So that's a few tight ends I look to add on the waiver wire for Week 7 of the fantasy football season.